the program officer for governance at NCCK, and the main implementing officer for this democracy and human rights program being funded by the University of Sweden through Diakonia. At NCCK, we have been engaged in national cohesion. At NCCK, we believe that that is one of our calling, that God has placed us to be creators of peace and creators of justice in the country. And so we believe a country with peace and justice is a country that is very cohesive. Our engagement in national cohesion has been especially so with regard to the election, where we engaged both pre, during and post-election with regard to the various election processes that were there. We began by doing a small mapping out of regions we thought would have a lot of trouble in the event of during the elections, and we did a lot of scenario buildings and had a lot of measures in place that we would do in the event of us having conflict of any sort. If I was to take you back to 2016, from the outset, there were a lot of street protests about the election process, and a section of the political divide felt that those who were in charge of the process were not adequate or had a sort of bias about it. And so there was a massive wave of street protests, lives were lost, and so the religious leaders stepped in, and there were a lot of negotiations that were done on both sides of the divide, from the Right Honorable Raila Odinga, Uhuru Kenyatta, the president. And so religious leaders presented a sort of draft memoranda that would a smooth transition of the Isaac Hassan-led commission, and away we would get to getting another commission. So the negotiation was done, and the Isaac commission stepped aside, and then we moved forward to have new commissioners. Now the process of selecting new commissioners for the election, the only people who had been trusted enough to be part of the selection committee were religious leaders. So religious leaders formed the bulk of the committee that went ahead to choose who would be our new commissioners at the Electoral Commission. Fast forward towards the election process. The 8th August election, NCCK and other bodies set up a situation room where they monitored elections from our hundreds of observers on the ground. And we also had access to the Bomas station, where we went and were part of the verification of the results. We presented a report of what we saw at Bomas to the verification process, and after talking with the opposition, they agreed that they would go to court.
A declaration is hereby issued that the presidential election held on 8th August 2017 was not conducted in accordance with the Constitution and the applicable law, rendering the declared results invalid, null, and void.
After the court nullification, moving forward to the 26th, we had another wave of calls for election processes, and the religious leaders tried talking to the opposition and to the government for the bare minimums that they wanted IBC to meet, and who had to go and who was not to go. We also had a problem when the ruling party went and passed legislation that would somehow cement the next election for them. And so, as we spoke, NCCK now engaged in the advent of, after the 26th election and after the election was upheld, now there was a lot of violence in Nairobi, especially in the informal section, where people were shot. So NCCK engaged, particularly the Minister for Internal Security.
They resort to the use of live bullets, yet there is opportunity to use non-lethal means of riot control. Whatever the circumstances, we remind the police to always seek to protect the sanctity of human life. We also call upon the Independent Policing Oversight Authority to expediently investigate the circumstances surrounding every death so that those found culpable may be prosecuted.
This is political work, and politicians are not the most sincere of people, and politicians know how to control public opinion. And so when religious leaders will take a stand that is either anti-NASA or anti-Jubilee, when we stand for what the truth is, the politicians will have a rumor going that, that these people are either pro-Jubilee or either pro-NASA, depending on what is convenient at the time. Media reporting has been very selective. Like, we would call media and then we have a certain conversation, but media will only highlight what was trending in the country at that time. They will say NCCK wants a prime minister, and this is after NCCK has spoken about killings in universities, has spoken about so many things, but I think we've had a challenge of winning of maintaining the trust of the public. But the public has continually trusted us, and so we will continue on. In the next phase of the program, we allocate more for media engagement. That we realize that some of these things are propaganda war, and that if religious leaders need to always be on air talking about various issues, that we cannot be left behind as life continues, because the politicians will consistently get free airtime, and it's not the same for religious leaders. So we need to have a more consistent media engagement. Kenyans need to have genuine conversations about where the country is going. That Kenyans need to heal the wounds that plague them, that are poked every election. That whether it's to do with electoral justice, whether it's to do with peace and cohesion, that we need to have these conversations in the absence of an election period, so that we can have long-term solutions instead of having to come and bandage solutions every election cycle.